Welcome back to the Dungeon Smith. Now, one of the awesome things about D&D are all the great campaign settings that have been released over the years. Today we're talking about how to run a game of Ravenloft with the 5th edition rules. If you aren't already familiar with Ravenloft, I made a short introduction video where I talked about the campaign setting. I'll add a link in the description below. The very first game I ran with the 5th edition rules, after they were officially released, was actually a Ravenloft game. And I'm happy to say that it's actually very easy to run a good Ravenloft game with the 5th edition rule set. First off, there's actually a lot of support already built into the 5th edition rules for some of the unique rules of Ravenloft, and those that do not exist can easily be converted over with very little hassle. Let's start talking about the most obvious, the Curse of Strahd. The Curse of Strahd is not technically a Ravenloft campaign setting adventure, but a reimagining of the original adventure called Ravenloft. But it's essentially a Ravenloft adventure. Wizards of the Coast even opened up the DM's Guild to Ravenloft modules after its release. Not only is Curse of Strahd a great adventure, and the quickest and easiest way to get into the Ravenloft experience in 5th edition, it also comes with tips on running horror, information on Tarokka cards, massive amounts of background on Strahd and Barovia, some examples of superficial changes to spells, and a whole bunch of monsters that fit perfectly into any Ravenloft campaign. So if you're thinking of running a Ravenloft game with 5th edition rules, it can be well worth your money. It is, however, not essential. In fact, most of everything you need to run a Ravenloft game is already provided in the DM's Guide and the Monsters Manual. Let's start by looking at perhaps the most iconic rule for Ravenloft, Fear and Horror. The DM's Guide already has a set of rules for Fear and Horror that function very close to how it used to be back in 2nd edition Ravenloft. They can be found under the Adventuring options in the Chapter 9. Essentially, they are Wisdom and Charisma saving throws respectively. Now, when it comes to Madness, there are rules for that as well in the DM's Guide in Chapter 8, so we have that covered as well. If you want to run a classical Ravenloft game, then I would say avoid the alternative rules for Sanity scores. That really isn't something that existed in traditional Ravenloft campaigns. Sanity is more something that you would add if you were running a Lovecraftian horror game, or something inspired by Darkest Dungeons, for example. The base Madness rules will be more than enough. Now, when it comes to magic, I would say change as little or as much as you like. It's not necessary to go through every single spell in the player's handbook and write down how they function differently if you don't want to. I would say that it's important to stick to the rule that no spell can transport you out of Ravenloft. So make a general ruling of that at the start of the campaign. Also, you cannot in general teleport between Ravenloft domains. You could go the route of the Curse of Strahd and simply add a visual twist to some spells. This isn't really something you need to decide beforehand. You can just sprinkle it in for some flavor as you go along. What you might need to decide is whether or not a specific spell warrants a power check if you're using rules for those. You could just decide this as you go along, but your players might feel cheated if they don't know beforehand that that new spell they chose could potentially doom their character if they ever chose to use it. So let's talk about power checks. I do enjoy the idea of power checks, even though I might not force them as often as was intended back in Ravenloft when it was written. Luckily, we can just lift the entire rule set for power checks out of 2nd edition and cram it into 5th edition without any problems. Basically, power checks work like this. You have a percentage-based chance based on the severity of your crime to become a little bit more corrupt. You roll d100, and if you roll under the value, you fall down one more step towards being corrupted. If you fail 6 rolls, then you have been completely converted into whatever monster the DM has chosen as a result of your corruption. I'm not going to go into too much more detail about power checks and corruption since, like I said, the rules convert over very easily. At least us with one more major mechanic: curses. Now, just like power checks, curses are a easy to add on set of rules based on a percentage roll, depending on how big the chance for the curse to work. So, once more, we can just seal this straight out of 2nd edition. In general, when it comes to curses, I tend to err on the side of story and drama. If I think a curse is appropriate and well worded and will fit the overall story, I'll let it happen, regardless of the dice roll. But it can be nice to have rules when it's a situation you're just not sure of. If you don't have access to the 2nd edition campaign guide for Ravenloft, if you just have an adventure model, for instance, you can always just run power checks and curses quick and easy by just setting a percentile chance based on success, based on just your own judgment, and then rolling a d100. It can really be that easy. Now let's move on to monsters. Ravenloft had some great monsters. Many of them were fairly unique, but there are actually a lot of monsters in the Monsters Manual that could be found in Ravenloft. Pretty much anything undead or fiendish can be found in Ravenloft. Wild beasts of different kinds are probably the most common monster you would encounter. There are plenty of lycanthropes of all kinds, and the Flesh Golem might be one of the more iconic monsters of Ravenloft. Scarecrows are a classical Ravenloft monster and could be found in the Ravenloft Monsters Compendium for 2nd edition. What you want to avoid are beholders, dragons, orcs, anything celestial really, and any creature is too good aligned. The Demon Plane of Dread is an artificial plane, and its core is evil, so keep that in mind when thinking about what creatures to use. Tree Ants, for example, they do exist in Ravenloft, but they are evil. I'll post a complete list of creatures from 5th edition that exist in Ravenloft on my Tumblr, so check in the description below for that. There were also a few classes in Ravenloft as well that were unique. The Arcanist, the Anchorite, the Gypsy, and the Avenger. Personally, I find that those, if you would like to convert those over to 5th edition, they work best as backgrounds or perhaps as subclasses. I have some thoughts about how to convert them over, but I haven't prepared anything yet. Well, hopefully this episode has given you an idea of how easy it is to run a game of Ravenloft with the current rule set of Dungeons & Dragons. Ravenloft is one of my favorite campaign settings, and I love talking about it. I definitely have more things to say on the topic, so if you have any questions, post them in the comments below. I would also like to ask my viewers a quick question. What did you think of the format of these videos? I'm planning to talk more about campaign settings in the future. Would you like the videos to be longer? Did you like how I split it into 2 videos, one dealing with the lore and general talk about the setting, while another dealt with just the mechanics? Or should I combine the 2 into one video? Let me know in the comments below. Well, until next time, Dungeon Delvers. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, then please leave a like down below, it really helps out a lot. And if you want to see more, don't forget to press the bell icon so you'll be receiving notifications whenever I upload new content. If you want to support the channel, then you can share this video with your friends, or you can check out my Dungeon Masters Guild products. You can also follow me on Twitter, or you can check out my Tumblr, where I'll be posting logs of the different Dungeons & Dragons campaigns that I run. Links to all of that in the description. My channel is still new, so if you have any suggestions for topics, then please let me know. I would love to know what D&D topics excite you.